Hey there, it's Perry. Just wanted to let you know that we have released episodes 3 and 4 of the FAIK Files, but episode 3 is the last episode that will be on this feed. So if you want to hear episode 4 and beyond, you'll need to go subscribe to the main show feed for the FAIK Files. And you can find a link to that in the show notes for this episode, or just go to your favorite podcast platform and search for the FAIK Files, spelled F-A-I-K. Enjoy episode 3, and if you want more, remember to go follow the show on your favorite podcast platform. Thanks. Hey there, this is Perry Carpenter, and welcome to this deep dive into my new book, FAIK, spelled F-A-I-K, a practical guide to living in a world filled with deepfakes, disinformation, and AI-generated deception. Let's dive in.
Chapter 3.
Whispers from the static.
She called herself the Maestro. Lines of code reflected in her glasses as she hunched over her laptop in the dimly lit room, fingers flying across the keyboard. Jace, her partner in crime, leaned against the wall, arms crossed. What's the holdup? Lena didn't look up. Patience, young Padawan. You can't rush art. Jace snorted. Tell that to our client. They're expecting results, not excuses. Lena paused. She turned to Jace, eyes narrowing. You'd think I don't know that? I'm not some kind of script kiddie on a joyride. We're about to unleash chaos. I need to make sure everything is perfect. Jace pushed off the wall, walked over to Lena's workstation, and peered over her shoulder at the code. Looks like gibberish to me. What's this supposed to do? A smile tugged at the corner of Lena's mouth. It's my masterpiece. A symphony of social engineering. And we're not just hacking a system, we're hijacking people's minds. Check this out. She pointed, ran her index finger down the screen, and then stopped. This function pulls user data from all over the internet, analyzes it, and constructs detailed psychological profiles. It catalogs their deepest fears, their secret desires, their cognitive biases, all the little quirks and glitches in their human operating system. Jace nodded. Okay, so, Lena said, her eyes gleaming. Then we exploit them. She circled her mouse pointer around a few lines of code. These lines right here create custom LLM and image generation prompts. This is what lets us generate personalized content designed to hijack thoughts, manipulate actions, poke the old amygdala. Fake news stories that play on their confirmation bias, inflammatory memes that short-circuit their critical thinking, ads that prey on their insecurities and fears. Jace let out a low whistle. Devious stuff. But don't the platforms have safeguards to stop this kind of thing? Lena shook her head. That's the beauty of it. The content is generated in real time, unique to each user, and the prompts are designed to social engineer the LLMs themselves. The people, the AI systems, the social media algorithms. None of them are prepared for what's about to happen. By the time they catch on, the damage will be done. She turned back to her screen, her fingers poised over the keyboard. It's showtime. With a final decisive keystroke, Lena launched the attack. Lines of code scrolled across the screen, faster and faster until they blurred into a solid wall of text. Jace watched over her shoulder, eyes widening. Is it working? Lena nodded, her gaze locked on the screen, imagining the havoc. Misinformation spread like wildfire, people panicking, lashing out at each other. A perfect storm of emotional manipulation. She thought to herself, we've shown what's possible when you understand the glitches in the human mind. Nothing will ever be the same. Lena turned back to her screen, watching as her creation wrought havoc across the digital landscape. This was the future she had chosen. The life of a maestro, playing the strings of the human mind. There was no turning back. The symphony had begun, and she was the conductor.
Welcome back to the FAIK Files. My name is Mason Amadeus. I'm sitting down with Perry Carpenter, author of the new book, FAIK, A Practical Guide to Living in a World of Deepfakes, Disinformation, and AI-Generated Deceptions. And in this episode, we're talking about Chapter 3, The Mindset and Tools of a Digital Manipulator. And we just heard this very hacker movie kind of whispers from the static opening story. I really liked that one. It feels the most cinematic so far. And as we'll see as the book goes on, you kind of build a little cinematic universe in these. But why don't we talk about what the inspiration was for Lena the hacker and this opening story?
I think what I was really going for with that is I did want kind of this opening scene in one of the chapters, especially one of the darker chapters, like anything about deception, really. To open up with somebody who is a master of that. And so the first thing that came to mind was the idea of somebody that believes that they can orchestrate everything and is kind of architecting their life and their online persona around that. And then if you are orchestrating things with today's world and today's technology, it's less about bringing money in, though that may be your goal, but more about the way that you can orchestrate all the little, what you would see if you're in that persona is all the little worker bees and the minds and everything else that you can kind of wave your conductor's wand or use your little, whatever the things that they call the control the marionettes and just make people dance and do the things that you want them to do. And so I wanted her to really like have that as her motivation more than money. To kind of, because I think that's darker. We understand people who are motivated by money. We don't necessarily think about the people who their entire purpose in the thing that they're doing is just moving chess pieces on a board and that they enjoy using the right lever here to get action, 6-7 steps down the line.
That puzzle solving mindset, which is perfect because that's what the chapter largely explores is the idea of a hacker's mindset. And a parallel that came to my mind when reading it was the way a lot of people approach video games, because that's something ostensibly that's supposed to be fun, but there's this inherent optimization puzzle in any system that draws in a very specific type of personality that is also, I think, probably close to the same personality as a hacker, right? That like, if this can do this, then that means X. And what if I stacked all of these together? Just that, the joy of doing it, right?
Yeah. And that's one of the things I wanted to tease out too, because we typically use the word hacker to represent a bad person. And in reality, hacker is a word that describes anybody that just likes to tinker and think outside of the box and play with things and to get unexpected results and to go, they created this to do this one thing, but I wonder if I can alter it to do something else or to get an unexpected result out of it. And that can be a playful thing or a productive thing that is really good for society. And the best people we can think of in technology are hackers. You go back to Steve Jobs or Bill Gates or Steve Wozniak or even Mark Zuckerberg and kind of the new darker versions of all the technologies that we have right now. It's born of a mindset of people that like to tinker and create things. And you can build the foundations of society, or you can use that same mindset and employ a much darker, more devious, more manipulative purpose to it.
I think It's interesting. There's parallels to be drawn there to AI as a tool, or AI as a tool of destruction. The human creativity, very much the same thing, right?
Exactly. There's a phrase that I use a couple times in the book where I say any tool will mold to the hands and the intentions of the person that's holding it. And I think that the hacker mindset, or the tool that we get just through sheer human creativity, is the same way. The outcome of that will reflect the personality and the motivations of the person who's wielding that creativity set.
And I actually want to put a pin into the specifics of the phrase you just said, the human creativity, because we're going to come back to later when AI, in this chapter, you talk about AI attempting tasks we would typically attribute to human creativity. But before we get there, I want to talk about the Uconnect hack. I think it's worth going over that and talking about it just for a minute, because that really drives home sort of the interconnectedness of our technologies in a scary way, I think.
Yeah. So in that section of the book, I'm trying to talk about people who use a hacker mindset in order to kind of expose things that the world needs to know about, and to do that for productive gains, to go, oh, did you know that this thing that exists can be used this way, and therefore we need to fix it, as opposed to, oh, did you know that this thing can be exposed in this way to be weaponized, and I'm going to keep that to myself and just hurt people with it.
Right.
But the Uconnect hack, was a couple of researchers, and they did that. The way that I describe it in the book is, I think it was Andy Greenberg, reporter from Wired, was the one that was discussing it. And he was getting a demo of that with a vehicle that, it's all calm, peaceful, it's normal. And then all of a sudden the radio turns up as loud as it goes. The air conditioner comes on, just going crazy. The windshield wipers are going back and forth, and all, it's just chaos. And it's all being run by these researchers. So if you can imagine two geeky people with a remote control or a laptop several feet away, or even potentially miles away, just through an internet connection, wreaking havoc on this infrastructure that is allowing cars to be quote unquote smarter. And I think it's a stark reminder that as soon as you hook something up to the internet, and you have interconnected systems also within that framework that you're putting it into, unless there's clear segmentation between the thing that you're exposing to the internet and everything else, you can get these nightmare marionette scenarios. Again, going back to the idea of a maestro where you're conducting chaos, these two researchers, for the purpose of showing the world what's possible so that it can be fixed, were embodying that mindset of a maestro, this masterful conductor, and they were showing the chaotic outcome that could come just from using that mindset, using the technology that's there with the cars that were available at the time.
And this was a hack that was conducted under controlled situation, under controlled circumstances for research, which is different, right? Because the idea of someone hacking a car in the wild on the highway while someone's driving is mortifying. So,
but they did show that's the possibility, right? So in the controlled situation, you expose the thing that, should other people be aware of that, would then expose thousands, tens of thousands of cars that were currently on the road at the time.
But it takes someone with that hacker mindset, stringing all these things together to make that happen for the greater good, like you said.
And there's typically two outcomes of that, right? Is one is the manufacturers will go, oh, thank you for showing us. The other outcome that typically happens is like denial and weaponization of the legal system against those people. Right,
which is the dumbest outcome.
You people are evil, and we're going to sue you for showing us what was broken in our stuff.
And we won't fix it.
We're just going to ignore it because it's costly to fix it. So you end up with, in the technical world, you can respond the way that Tylenol did with the cyanide scares, decades ago, and you can improve the packaging process and the safety process around everything and say, we're going to do the right thing. Or you can just ignore it and hope that it goes away and use part of the finances that you might have spent on improving things in order to pay lawyers to do your bidding and to hide everything.
And in the meantime, leaving some kind of a gaping security flaw.
Exactly.
Let's pivot to talking about the ways that you can be exploited. So from the hacker mindset to taking the hacker mindset and looking at a target. You talk about two modes of thinking, which is this idea that was established by Daniel Kahneman.
Yeah, Daniel Kahneman popularized it. And he had a book called Thinking Fast and Slow, which really put that system 1, system 2 thinking into the popular conversation. But I believe it was being used before he popularized it.
And you pulled that into the book here to talk about those two modes of thinking and how they relate to exploitation on the internet. Why don't you run down what the two modes of thinking are real quick?
Sure. System 1 is like super reactive. It's the way that you get a piece of stimulus as a human, and then you just are on autopilot. So it is very emotional. It's very fast. It takes mental shortcuts, what we would call heuristics, and is very kind of algorithmically based. It is if A, then B in our mind. And you everybody here has experienced that. Like if you've ever been in that situation where like you've had a pencil start to roll off your desk and then all of a sudden you've caught it with like these ninja-like reflexes and you don't even realize that you made the conscious decision to do it. But maybe at the same time, there was a cup of coffee on your desk. And as you went to catch the pencil, you knock everything else off.
Yeah.
Versus if you had rationally assessed the situation that said, if I move my limbs in this direction at this velocity to do this one thing, it will cause this other effect over there that's totally worse than what I would have experienced if my pencil hits the ground.
Right.
That is the reactive mode or system 1. System 2 is much more like solving a math problem. You know, if somebody said, tell me the product of, 583 divided by 7. Yeah,
but that's very active thought.
I mean, you feel your mind just kind of go kerchunk, and you literally have to decide if you want to engage in that or not. And if you do, then you realize you have to put a process in. You might get a piece of paper and a pencil and work it out. You might even go through some processes of trying to make it easier on yourself. And in that whole time that you're in system 2, you kind of hate it.
Because that's energy, right?
Yeah, it's energy. And your mind is wanting to go back to system 1 as fast as possible because it's more comfortable. And so attackers understand that inherently. So if I can get somebody emotional, if I can get them reactive, then they will naturally do X. And so they'll use these, they'll weaponize fear or uncertainty or authority or some kind of time-based condition like urgency, some kind of lust or self-gain, even just curiosity. Curiosity is like an itch that needs to be scratched. And so clickbait titles are a weaponization of system 1 in a lot of ways. It's like 5 great ways to do X, and number 4 is going to blow your mind. And all of a sudden your mind's going, I didn't even know that there were 5. I see these 4, but what could 5 be? I must know. And so before you know it, you've clicked the thing, and then they get some ad revenue because of that.
And even more so, that those listicle formats, you know how to read them from the title. You don't have to think about like how to read it. You just go point by point and take what like it's structured to be consumed almost passively.
Exactly. So criminals, scammers, information artists, they understand that kind of at a gut level, even if they don't understand the science, is that if I were to poke somebody here, they're likely to do this other thing. Versus if I give them time to slow down, then they're probably not going to do the thing that I want unless I get way more manipulative, unless I start to play with the facts or play with the context or something like that. System 2 is just much more reflective. It is our right-mindedness at its best. The problem is that system 1 drives about 95% of our thoughts and actions every day.
And trying to force yourself to be in system 2 all the time isn't the answer, right? That would be,
you can't.
That would just be impossible.
Yeah, you'd go insane. Like everybody in the world would be walking around with blood coming out of their nose and ears. That
was my first thought reading. I was like, well, I guess I'll just pay attention to everything then. I'll just think about every single thing, and you can't.
Yeah. The biggest thing is that you can take something that is system 2 at the beginning and turn it into system 1. everybody's gone through the process of like learning how to brush their teeth, and they had to think very methodically about it. And now you can brush your teeth and do 5 other things at the same time.
Or driving.
Yeah, or driving. Even learning a skill set around sports or something like that. It's all, repetitive movements that become habitualized over time. And I think that even when it comes to detecting scams, the biggest single defense that we have is the ability to slow down and to take a breath and then to engage system 2. And so the way that you then start to codify that is learning to, and I hate to get like woo-woo metaphysical with it, but I think that we can pull a little bit of the ideas from like a mindfulness type of principle to that, to where there's, as soon as you learn to figure out like what's going on in your own mind and body, you can go, why did I just feel a sense of outrage or urgency with that? And at that point, you take a step back, slow down, and go, all right, now what story is this thing trying to tell me? What emotion is it trying to poke? What thing is it wanting me to do or believe? And at that point, you're much more in system 2, and you're kind of ready to defend yourself.
It's very funny that you said that, because one of the points on my my sheet of notes I have for the interview is, so mindfulness meditation is the answer, LOL.
Right.
So I wrote that down because I thought, well, a lot of those principles do seem to cross over, of just taking stock when things get big, right?
Yeah. And you can be aware of yourself without going all the way over. You don't need to be in a yoga pose or in a class to do that. Right. It's just kind of going, oh, wait, why did I feel whatever that was? And is there something that I need to uncover within this thing that landed in front of me at this point, whether that's an email or social media post or whatever?
So with that in mind as like the primary tool for how do we avoid being tricked, let's talk about the term you've coined, exploitation zone. And I want to get into that by talking about a study you mentioned that was conducted in 2022 that concluded that 78.4% of people failed to notice deepfakes even with a warning preceding them. That study really surprised me, because we talked in the past episodes about how it's not so much judging the veracity of something is what is going to help us in the age of AI, but judging our own responses to things. That just goes to show that even with 2-year-old AI, it was image generation, right? Not video, or was it images?
I believe there was a video version of that was done in 2023 as well. I'd have to go double check it, but maybe I can double check that and put it in the show notes. But in 2023, there was a study that said that even with a warning that one of the videos you'll watch within like the next 5 is a deep fake, only it's just over 20% of the time can people tell which one that is. So can they correctly identify it? And then also they incorrectly identify it about that same amount of time, which means we now live in a world where people don't know what's real and what's not. So if you're calling real things fake and fake things real, that means we have to adjust our way of perceiving reality.
For sure. And that's with people who are in system 2 modes of thought going into this, right?
Yeah. They're not just blindly doom scrolling through their social media feed, where their cognitive frame is, this is the version of reality that I participate in. The other thing is everything online right now has the fingerprints of AI all over it, whether we want it to or not. Every
What do you mean?
Every Microsoft Word document that you start to write something in is suggesting where you should put commas and punctuation and uppercase and lowercase, and all that's AI. It's predictive. It's being reinforced. You can accept it or not. Everything on your Instagram feed, you have people that you know personally that are real people that no longer have pores on their skin as soon as they're on Instagram, and it's because of Instagram filters and or people that look like they're wearing makeup when they're not. So even the reality that we accept around us has fingerprints of AI manipulation all over it. And so we're conditioned to look at things that do not exist in the real world that we also know are real at the same time. It's just got this veneer of AI on it, which means that you can actually create an AI image that looks more real than real life that's being reflected on your Instagram feed just by adding more pores and defects and everything else. And you have your real people that you know that look artificially generated.
I really never thought of it that way, but that really drives home the point that like it's our focus should not be trying to identify if something is AI, but it should be to acknowledge if something's trying to influence us. Because you're absolutely right, and I never really thought about that. We've been doing that with art forever, though. Magazines, TV, anything like that, any kind of manipulation in media that we share.
The more and more that I've thought about it since finishing the book, I think that the central message or takeaway that I want for everybody to have comes down to, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if the thing you're looking at is real or not. The thing that matters is the narrative that you're being sold. Kind
of the framing of it, which you talked about in the chapter as like one of the major tools of how any kind of a disinformation can be made more effective, by including in an effective frame. Let's right here at the end, let's wrap up by tying that together with the exploitation zone. There's a graph in the book that I love that makes the exploitation zone really clear. But if you could do your best in audio alone to describe what the exploitation zone is.
The exploitation zone is an adaptation that I've made of a graph that was, I think, first proposed by Astro Teller from Google, where he's talking about the fact that humans adapt at a very slow rate. And so there's this kind of gently sloping line on the bottom that depicts human adaptability. And if you think society at the same time as humans. And then there's this other line that starts out kind of lower than that line that then almost in a hockey stick formation starts to then cross over that human adaptability and then slope up way, way high. That is the technological progress or technology innovation, evolution. And you can feel that. You can feel that technology acceleration where things are getting faster, things are getting more complex with technology, and there's way more possible now. And so when that crossover point happens, if you can kind of imagine this little gap that opens up on the other side of that as those timelines continue to go out into infinity, that gap is what I call the exploitation zone. And when you have that exploitation zones of the people that understand where technology is and the slower rate of human adaptation, then you have people that can take advantage of that for good by bringing products and services and helping improve the human condition, or people that will weaponize that and do some really bad, scary things by taking advantage of confusion or ignorance or a whole host of other factors that are there. And I'll give you maybe two examples of the exploitation zone at work in ways that are not scary.
Sure.
If you've ever walked into like your parents' house or your grandparents' house and you go in the kitchen and the clock on the microwave is flashing noon all the time, that is the exploitation zone, is that they've grown up in a generation where the interface for that was different. It's now too cumbersome or confusing to go set the clock on that thing. Or like in my generation, I was the only person in the house that knew how to set the VCR to record something. Or your new Gen Alpha friend that you have shows you whatever the new social media network is, and you're like, I can't even figure out the interface on this. And it's all of that, our mental framework and the way that we interface with the world does not jive with this new thing that exists, and we just live in this state of confusion because of it.
So it's really just the changes outpacing our ability to fully understand them, and because that's across so many different domains, and like only the ones in which you're an expert can you really stay up to date if you even tried.
And I'll say, even people in the AI world can't keep up with all of the AI innovation right now.
Oh, I believe that.
And even people that are into if you're into large language model AI, it's possible that you have no idea what's going on within the audio and video side of things or the image side of things. And even if you're into one of those, you may not know all the other research that's going on around the world, because there's so many new papers and innovations coming out right now that even if you feel like you're at the heart of this domain or subdomain, you can get blindsided by an innovation that you've not realized existed for months.
I think that is fascinating. And I think that's all the time we have in this episode. Awesome. And we'll probably dive into some more about that specific topic in the next one, because chapter 4 is about bias, data poisoning, and output oddities.
Hello. If you're hearing this message, you are not listening on the main feed. To hear the next episode, and any following episodes, search for the FAIK Files in your podcast app, or follow the link in the show notes. Remember, that's the FAIK Files, spelled F-A-I-K. All future episodes of this podcast will only be available on the main feed, so make sure to subscribe or follow now.